Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I, Dr. Muhammad Aslam from Department of Pakistan Studies. Welcome to the lecture number 14 of our course, that is Ideology and Constitution of Pakistan. Today's lecture focuses on an important topic, that is early constitutional developments in Pakistan from 1947 to 1956. Dear student, before we begin our detailed discussion, let us first look at the micro-learning outcome of today's lecture. By the end of this lecture, student will be able to identify the major constitutional developments in Pakistan from 1947 to 1956 and to explain the role of the Government of India Act 1935 and discuss the key challenges in early constitution making. And finally, you will be able to analyze the main feature of the constitution and reason for delays in constitution making process. So students, now we will discuss the introduction of our topic. In the previous lecture, we covered the objective resolution of 1949, which established the ideological foundation of Pakistan constitutional framework. In today's lecture, we will explore the constitutional developments in early Pakistan from 1947 to 1956. After independence, Pakistan faced urgent challenge of building a stable constitutional framework for new state. During this period, several important debates and developments shaped the direction of the country's constitutional evolution. So students, this chapter will guide you through this journey in three key parts. First, we will examine the Government of India Act 1935 and its role as a Pakistan's interim constitution. Second, we will review the work of Basic Principles Committee. Finally, we will analyze the reason behind the long delay in framing Pakistan's first constitution in 1956. So students, now we will discuss the role of the Government of India Act 1935. The Government of India Act 1935 was adopted as interim constitution of Pakistan. After independence in August 1947, Pakistan faced an immediate and serious challenge. The new state needed a constitutional framework to govern the country. Since Pakistan did not yet have its own constitution, the leadership relied on legal arrangements inherited from British rule. Two important instruments played a key role in this process. Number one, the Indian Independence Act of 1947 and the Government of India Act 1935. So, student, the Indian Independence Act of 1947 passed by the British Parliament formally ended British colonial rule in the subcontinent and created two independent dominions, India and Pakistan. The act also declared that until the new states prepared their own constitution, the Government of India Act 1935 would serve as their interim constitutional framework with necessary modification. यानी ये एक्ट इंडिया और पाकिस्तान दोनों के लिए था. So students, now we will discuss the key feature of the Act 1935. इसके हम निकात हम डिस्कस करेंगे. Office of the Governor General. After independence, the Governor General became the head of the state of Pakistan and exercised significant executive powers, including appointment of Prime Minister and the ministers. Now the federal structure. The Act introduced the idea of federal system, dividing powers between the center and the provinces, यानी इसने मरकज़ और सूबों के दरमियान इख्तियारात को तकसीम किया था. Although the full federal scheme was not completely implemented. Provincial autonomy. The provincial government were given authority over certain administrative and legislative matters, and elected provincial ministers were responsible for governing the provinces. So students, now we will discuss the bicameral legislature at the center. The Act proposed a bicameral federal structure consisting of Council of State, yani upper house, and Federal Assembly, lower house. Although the federal part was not fully implemented in British India, the concept influenced Pakistan's later constitutional developments. Now the division of powers. The Act clearly divided legislative powers into three lists. Number one, the federal list, subjects controlled by the central government, यानी मरकज़ के इख्तियारात इसमें डिस्कस किए गए थे. एंड टू, द प्रोविंशियल लिस्ट, सब्जेक्ट्स कंट्रोल्ड बाय द प्रोविंसेस, सूबों के इख्तियारात डिस्कस किए गए थे. एंड थर्ड, द कंकरेंट लिस्ट, सब्जेक्ट शेयर बाय बोथ. दिस फ्रेमवर्क गाइडेड पाकिस्तान अर्लियर लेजिस्लेटिव सिस्टम. Now the independent judiciary. The Act provided for the establishment of an independent judicial system. It created the Federal Court, which served as the highest court for constitutional interpretation before the establishment of Pakistan Supreme Court. Now the separate electorates. The Act continued the system of separate electorates where different religious community elected their own representative. The emergency powers of the Governor General. The Governor General possessed extensive reserve and emergency powers, allowing him to override elected institutions when necessary. So students, now we will discuss the continuation of the administrative system. The Act ensured the continuation of the existing administrative and bureaucratic system inherited from British India. This helped Pakistan maintain governmental continuity during the early years of independence. So in this way, this act played a paradoxical role. On one hand, it was a colonial framework with serious limitations and undemocratic features. On the other hand, it provided a ready-made administrative structure that allowed the government, judiciary, civil services and military institutions to function during the early years of independence. इस तरह इस एक्ट के तहत पाकिस्तान की पहली असम्बली की बुनियाद रखी गई, जो कि 14 अगस्त 1947 को रखी गई थी और कायदे आज़म मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना इसके पहले सदर बने थे. दिस असम्बली आल्सो एक्टेड एज द सेंट्रल लेजिस्लेचर ऑफ द कंट्री. इट पास द ऑब्जेक्टिव रेजोल्यूशन इन 1949 विच लेड द आइडियोलॉजिकल फाउंडेशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. However, the assembly was dissolved on 24 October 1954 by the Governor General Ghulam Muhammad. So students, now we will discuss the delay in constitution making. Formation of the Basic Principles Committees between 1947 to 1956. Pakistan made continuous effort to establish a permanent constitutional framework. Before drafting a constitution, the Constituent Assembly needed to define the basic principle for governance. यहाँ Constituent Assembly से मुराद आइन सादा दायरा है जिसके ज़िम्मे मुल्क का नया आइन बनाना था. The objective resolution was presented on 7 March 1949 and adopted on 12 March 1949, becoming the ground norm of Pakistan's constitutional development. On the same day, the Basic Principles Committee was formed by Khwaja Nazmuddin on the advice of Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan to outline the principles for drafting the future constitution. Students, now we will discuss the first Basic Principles Committee report 1950. The first Basic Principle report was the first formal attempt to outline Pakistan's constitutional framework. It was presented to the Constituent Assembly on 28 September 1950 by Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan. The committee was tasked with defining the basic constitutional principle in light of Objective Resolution of 1949. Key feature यानी अहम निकात. It proposed a parliamentary system with the bicameral legislature. The president, head of the state, was to be a Muslim. सदर के लिए मुसलमान होना लाजमी करार दिया गया था. Elected for a 5-year term with powers to dissolve the legislature. On the other hand, upper house equally representation for all provinces and the lower house directly elected by the people. And Urdu recommended as the only state language. ये बाद में बहुत इशू की वजह बनी थी ईस्ट और वेस्ट पाकिस्तान के दरमियान. And also ensured that no law would be contradict to the Quran and Sunnah. Why it was rejected? East Bengal opposed it because equal provincial representation reduced its population majority, क्योंकि ईस्ट बंगाल की या मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान की आबादी ज़्यादा थी. And also proposal of Urdu as the sole national language caused strong protest in East Pakistan. यानी ईस्ट पाकिस्तान में उर्दू की सिंगल लैंग्वेज होने की वजह से बहुत ज़्यादा एहतजाज हुए. Due to intense criticism and political deadlock between East and West Pakistan, the report was withdrawn for revision. So students, now we will discuss the second principal committee report 1952. The second report was presented to the Constituent Assembly on 22 December 1952 by Prime Minister Khwaja Nazmuddin. After the failure of the first basic principal committee report, it aimed to resolve the political deadlock between East and West Pakistan. Now the key features of second report. Number 1, the parity principle यानी बराबरी के असूल. It proposed equal representation for East and West Pakistan in the federal legislature regardless of population. And number 2, bicameral legislature, a house of units, 120 seats. It divided 60 seats with East and West Pakistan, and the House of People 400 seats, 200 seats for East Pakistan and 200 for West Pakistan. And on the other hand, Board of Ulama, it was suggested that a body of religious scholars to review law to ensure they did not contradict the Quran and Sunnah. On the other hand, head of the state, President was required to be a Muslim. The report remained silent on the national language, यानी जो कौम का सबसे बड़ा मसला था उस वक्त ज़बान का, उस पे वो खामोश थी. Why it was failed? East Pakistan opposed the parity formula and demanded representation based on population. On the other hand, religious groups criticized the unclear role of Islam and Sharia in the proposed constitution. Smaller provinces fear excessive centralization of powers. Frequent changes in the government and leadership hindered consensus. Strong criticism from political parties and public led to the rejection of the second report. The second principal report led to a complete political deadlock. The friction became so intense that it eventually led to the dismissal of Prime Minister Khwaja Nazmuddin in April 1953 by Governor General Ghulam Muhammad. Now students, we will discuss the third basic principal committee report, जिसको बाद में बोगरा फार्मूला भी कहा गया था, 1953 to 1954. The report was presented in 1953 by Prime Minister Muhammad Ali Bogra in the Constituent Assembly to overcome the deadlock created by the earlier basic principles committee reports and to finalize the constitutional framework. की फीचर, इसके अहम निकात क्या थे? इंट्रोड्यूस द पैरिटी फार्मूला, इसने बराबरी के असूल मुतारफ़ कराए, गिविंग इक्वल रिप्रेजेंटेशन टू ईस्ट एंड वेस्ट पाकिस्तान इन द सेंट्रल लेजिस्लेचर, एंड आल्सो प्रपोज्ड अ फेडरल सिस्टम विद द बाई कैमरल लेजिस्लेचर. इसने भी मरकज़ी असम्बली के 2 हाउसेज इंट्रोड्यूस करवाए थे. रिकगनाइज्ड इस्लाम एज ए गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड आल्सो इंक्लूडेड फंडामेंटल राइट्स एंड इंडिपेंडेंट judiciary. The reports helped break the constitutional deadlock and paved the way for the drafting of the 1956 Constitution, although the resolution of the first Constituent Assembly in 1954 delayed the final adoption of the Constitution. So students, now we will discuss the major challenges faced by the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan. So student, the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan 1947 to 1954 faced numerous challenges that hindered its ability to frame a constitution. Among these, 9 major issues dominated the constitutional debates, like federalism, issue of representation, the electoral system, the national language जो सबसे बड़ा मसला रहा है, the form of government and the Islamic character of state. These were joined by leadership vacuum, military political instability, frequent changes of government, and bureaucratic interference. These conflicts ultimately delayed constitution making and contributed to the eventually dissolution of the assembly in 1954. So students, now we will discuss one by one all challenges and issues. The number one, federalism. One of the earliest and most significant issues before the Constituent Assembly was deciding whether Pakistan should adopt a unitary or federal system of government. Pakistan was geographically divided into two wings, East Pakistan and West Pakistan, which were separated by more than 1,000 miles of Indian territory. Both wings also consisted of multiple provinces and regions with distinct political and cultural identities, यानी ईस्ट और वेस्ट पाकिस्तान में मुख्तलिफ कल्चर थे, ज़बानें थीं और इसके अलावा पॉलिटिकल आइडियाज़ थे, जो सबसे बड़ी वजह बने थे डिले की. And on the other hand, many provincial leaders, especially from East Bengal, Sindh and the northwest frontier provinces, demanded a federal structure that would provide substantial autonomy to the provinces. They feared that a strong central government might dominate provincial affairs and undermine regional interest. On the other hand, some political leaders and bureaucrats believed that Pakistan needed a strong central government to maintain national unity and stability. The country was facing serious challenges including refugees rehabilitation, economic problems, and security threats. For this reason, they argued that excessive provincial autonomy could weaken the state. The debate over federalism continued for several years. Eventually, the constitution maker agreed on a federal system, but with considerable power reserved for the central government. This compromise reflected the need to balance national unity with provincial rights. So students, now we will discuss the issue of representation in federal legislature. Another major issue was how different regions of Pakistan would be represented in the federal legislature. The central conflict was between population-based representation and equal representation between East and West Pakistan. यानी मशरकी और मगरबी पाकिस्तान का बड़ा मसला था. East Pakistan had a larger population accounting for more than half of the total population of the country. Therefore, the leaders from East Pakistan argued that representation in the national legislature should be based on population, which would naturally give them a majority. However, politicians from West Pakistan were concerned that population-based representation would allow East Pakistan to dominate the central government. To avoid this situation, the proposed principle of parity, which meant equal representation for both wings regardless of population. This disagreement created a long political deadlock. Neither side was willing to compromise easily, and many constitutional proposals failed because they could not reconcile these competing demands. And on the other hand, the issue of separate or joint electorates. The question of electoral arrangement were another important issue before the Constituent Assembly. During British rule in India, elections were often conducted on the basis of separate electorates, where Muslim, Hindus and other communities voted for their own representatives. After independence, Pakistan leaders debated whether the country should continue with separate electorates or adopt a joint electorate system. Supporters of separate electorates argue that this system protected minority rights by ensuring that minority communities could elect their own representative. They believe that without separate electorates, minority voices might be overshadowed by the Muslim majority. On the other hand, several political leaders and members of the Constituent Assembly favored joint electorates, arguing that all citizens should vote together regardless of religion in order to promote national unity and democratic equality. This disagreement created political debate during the early constitutional discussion of Pakistan and contributed to delays in reaching a consensus on the future electoral system. So students, now we'll discuss the important issue, that is national language. Pakistan inherited significant linguistic diversity at the time of independence, but after the birth of Pakistan, Urdu was declared as national language of Pakistan. Urdu had historically served as a symbol of Muslim cultural identity in the subcontinent and had played an important role in the Pakistan movement. However, this decision was strongly opposed by the leader and intellectuals in East Pakistan, where Bengali was spoken by the majority of the population. They argued Bengali should also be recognized as a national language because it was the mother tongue of the more than half of Pakistan's citizens. The language controversy became particularly intense in East Pakistan. In 1952, students and activists organized protests demanding the recognition of Bengali as a national language. These protests, known as the language movement, resulted in clashes with the authorities and the death of several protesters. So students, now we will discuss the issue of parliamentary or presidential system. Another critical issue faced by Constituent Assembly was determining the structure of the executive branch. Many political leaders favored the parliamentary system as they were familiar with it from British constitutional tradition. Under this system, the Prime Minister and Cabinet are responsible to the legislature and the government can be removed through parliamentary procedure. Supporters believed that this system would promote democratic accountability and ensure that government remain answerable to the elected representative of the people. So students, on the other hand, some leaders suggested adopting a presidential system where president would directly elected and would exercise significant executive authority. They argued that a strong president could provide stable leadership and prevent political instability. Now the issue of Islamic character of the state. Perhaps the most important and sensitive issue before the Constituent Assembly was defining the Islamic character of Pakistan state. Pakistan had been created in the name of Islam and many citizens expected the new state to reflect Islamic principle in its political and legal system. However, there was no complete agreement on what exactly constituted an Islamic state. Some religious scholars believe that constitution should strictly follow Islamic law and the religious scholars should have a central role in governance. Other political leaders believe that Pakistan should be a modern democratic state inspired by the Islamic values rather than a theocratic system governed directly by religious authorities. In March 1949, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Objective Resolution which attempted to reconcile these different viewpoints. Despite Objective Resolution, debates about the Islamic character of the state continued throughout the constitution making process. The challenge was to balance Islamic principle with democratic governance and minority rights. Now students, we will discuss the leadership vacuum. Pakistan lost two of its most important leaders within the first few years of independence. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founding father and Governor General of Pakistan, passed away in September 1948. His death created a leadership vacuum at a crucial stage of nation building. Similarly, Liaquat Ali Khan, Pakistan's first Prime Minister, was assassinated in 1951. His death further destabilized the political environment. After these losses, Pakistan lacked strong and stable leadership capable of guiding the constitution-making process effectively. So students, now we will discuss the political instability and frequent changes of the government. Political instability was another major reason behind the delay. After the death of Liaquat Ali Khan, Pakistan experienced frequent changes in government. Several prime ministers came to power within a short period, including Khwaja Nazimuddin, Muhammad Ali Bogra, and Chaudhry Muhammad Ali. These frequent changes in leadership disrupted the continuity of the constitution making process. Each new government introduced different priorities and approaches, which further complicated the drafting of the constitution. Now, students, we will discuss the bureaucratic and military influences in politics. After 1947, the process of constitution making in Pakistan was significantly affected by the bureaucracy and military, who wielded considerable influence over political affairs. The civil services inherited from British often acted as a stronghold of power, guiding or obstructing political decision, while the military, seen as a guardian of national security, increasingly involved itself in governance. Their influence created a climate of political coercion and instability, as elected representatives were frequently constrained or overruled. This interference delayed consensus on key constitutional issues. So students, now we will discuss the dissolution of First Constituent Assembly in 1954. In October 1954, Governor General Ghulam Muhammad dissolved Pakistan's first Constituent Assembly, citing its inefficiency in framing a constitution. The Speaker of the Assembly, Maulvi Tamizuddin Khan, challenged this action in the Sindh Chief Court, which initially declared the dissolution of illegal and supported Tamizuddin Khan. However, the government challenged this decision in the Federal Court of Pakistan, where Chief Justice Muhammad Munir overturned the earlier ruling. The Federal Court held that the Governor General's assent was necessary for laws passed by the Constituent Assembly, effectively validating the dissolution. This judgment strengthened executive authority over the legislature and had lasting impact on Pakistan's constitutional and political development. Then the Second Constituent Assembly of Pakistan was formed in 1955 after the dissolution of the First Constituent Assembly of Pakistan by the Governor General Ghulam Muhammad in 1954. Its members were indirectly elected by the Provincial Assembly of both East and West Pakistan. The main task of the assembly was to frame a constitution for the country. Under the leadership of Chaudhry Muhammad Ali, the assembly successfully drafted and passed the Constitution of Pakistan 1956, which was in force on 23rd March 1956 and declared Pakistan as the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. The assembly also supported the One Unit scheme to merge the provinces of West Pakistan into a single administrative unit. However, its work ended in 1958 when President Iskandar Mirza imposed martial law with the support of Ayub Khan, bringing the constitutional government to an end. So students, now we will discuss the conclusion of our topic. The period from 1947 to 1956 was a critical and turbulent phase in Pakistan's constitutional history. The adoption of the Government of India Act 1935 as an interim constitution was practical necessity, but it carried colonial features such as strong executive power that later created political problems. During this time, Pakistan faced several challenges, including the language controversy, disputes over political representation, and tension between the center and provinces. The Basic Principle Committee attempted to prepare a constitutional framework, but its efforts were hindered by weak political institutions, limited consensus, and executive interference. Especially the dissolution of the Constituent Assembly in 1954, which introduced the doctrine of necessity. Finally, after 9 years of struggle, Pakistan adopted its first constitution on 29th February 1956, establishing a federal parliamentary system and declaring the country the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Thank you so much, dear student, for listening the lecture. I will see you in the next lecture, which is about the Constitution of Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.